BTB listeners, thank you so much for checking out today's episode. Listen, if this episode inspires you, do me a favor, take 5 seconds to shoot me a like and subscribe to the podcast. There are several more exciting guests that are in the pipeline, and I just can't thank you enough for your continued support, and let's keep paying the mission forward. In today's episode, I interview Claudia B. She is a singer-songwriter currently based out of Nashville, Tennessee. She recently was a contestant on the world-renowned TV show The Voice, where she represented John Legend's team and made it as one of the top 3 contestants on the show. Her musical journey, from starting a rock band in high school to attending Berkeley College of Music, where she learned the importance of perseverance and staying true to oneself. Throughout the conversation, Claudia emphasizes the value of preparation and perspective, while also sharing her insights and advice on facing challenges to help you pursue your goals.
Don't be afraid of the dark. Be careful with stars. Not every light is gonna guide you, baby.
Welcome to the BTB Project, designed to empower listeners to identify their why and to live their best lives no matter the circumstances. My name is Kollman Gearhart. A former athlete and motivational coach, I've had the opportunity to inspire thousands through my story and help accomplish what they are built to be. You'll be encouraged by each and every episode, and let's get into it.
Yeah, when I blow up, I'ma soar high like Peter Pan. In real life, be living out my dreams. If I'm waking up, it's in a foreign land.
Well, I've been able to see a lot of stressful moments in my life on the athletic court of tennis, being able to compete against some folks that are just very challenging at times and put me into a lot of nervous angst and trying to close out matches against those competitors. And today's guest is someone where I get to flip the script a little bit, who's been able to be on some of the biggest stages, being able to tap into music and has a voice that is just unbelievably powerful. The purpose of today's conversation is I want to get to the bottom of the meaning behind it. She is a tremendous artist coming from Nashville, Tennessee. Claudia, welcome to the BTB Project.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm also a former tennis player myself. Nothing like you, but I remember the fear of being on the court all too well.
It's an isolating sport, as you can probably relate to now.
Yes.
Being a musician, and the microphone and the racket can probably be virtually the same thing. It's a sport that maybe hopefully helped you cross over into what you're doing now. And I know that Nashville is where you reside. And here we are in this interesting dynamic because you get a random text message from a good friend of mine, Tyler Ward, who is one of the founders of Songhouse that you're involved with. And I would love for you to start by telling the listeners about what does Nashville, Tennessee and Songhouse mean to you?
Well, I've been in Nashville for over 4 years at this point, which is crazy to say. Everyone says it's a 10-year town, and I guess I'm finding that out to be true. I got involved with Songhouse through a mutual friend of mine and Tyler's. His name is Gabe Baker. You may have seen him on the page a few times, but he and I set up a write together. It was one of my first months moving here after being in Nashville. And I went over to his house, which is actually the loft, which is where Songhouse films all their content. So I show up and our 2-person write turns into a 20-person, one of the first Songhouses ever. It's been really cool to, both in the room and watching from home and on my phone, just to see the platform grow. Virtually nothing. They started, obviously, as any page does, with not a lot of following, and now it's a pretty big and pretty influential, I would say, writing and performance page. It's really cool.
It's always fascinating to see how some of these concepts start. And with Tyler, it was amazing, as we talked about before we hopped on. I knew him for more of kicking soccer balls around as a kid, or watching him play football in high school, and all of a sudden his older brother gave him a bet. Hey, you got to try this UNC Idol, where him and I went to college together, this talent show. And he goes up and takes this risk. His mom comes from a pretty heavy piano background, and he was the sport guy at all times. And all of a sudden he's on a stage doing something, and it just happened. So I know that you can relate to that. When you were growing up, you had an opportunity to tap into being in a band and maybe love some rock music back in the day. I'd love for you to talk about how in the world did this music rodeo start for you?
Absolutely. It's funny you mentioned earlier the mashup or the kind of like rap song acoustic thing that Tyler did for that show. And it reminded me, I did something similar. I remember being in middle school and high school, and I would go on GarageBand and make these medleys. They're actually still up on SoundCloud. I don't recommend anyone go find them, but these medleys of current, whatever I heard on the like hip hop R&B station. I don't know why, but I always loved those chords, and they always spoke to me. So I just did stuff like that. That was actually one of my first introduction into recording. It's changed a lot since then. With music, I grew up with musical parents. My mom is a singer. She was in a band in college. My dad is musical, but he's an actor, or he was an actor as well. So I had a little bit of those performance genes, as well as most of my extended family was connected to music in some way or another, from piano tuning to banjo playing, songwriting, pretty much all of it. So it wasn't too out of the blue when I started to really connect with music and writing. I started taking piano lessons, and it all really changed for me when I developed the skill to be able to play by ear. When I put away like the classical books and all that, as amazing as that is, and was able to tap into what came through for me just from my own mind, and that original music really changed the game for me. And as you mentioned, yes, I did join a band pretty early on. It was through this program. I was teaching there part-time, and then I was also like a student there part-time. So they set kids up. It's pretty cool, yeah, with in bands, I guess I should say. And that silly little thing turned out to give me a ton of experience playing in the DC area and writing our own songs and figuring out how to make a set list and everything. So I'm grateful for it.
The evolution of being able to have some lineage in your family to give you that proverbial nudge towards what you end up being passionate about is so cool. I can deeply relate to that with tennis. I got a picture up here in my office of my great grandparents in like the full ensemble of the suit jacket and the dress, like grass
Wow.
courts, wooden rackets. And my dad played in college. My uncle also played, and it was always in my blood. And it's funny because what ended up happening was I had an older brother who would beat me in every single sport. He was 4 years older. He reminded me of that after he beat me. And I got to a point where I got on the tennis court with him, and it was the first sport that I could actually beat him in.
So of course you stuck with it.
Of course I stuck with it. And it's interesting how that tough love that I got fueled a fire in me to see what I could do with this game. And even though it was part of my family, I started late and had to compete and beat a lot of people that had been doing it much longer than me. So with that said, going back to your story and thinking about the evolution of music, I'm looking at Berkeley's, and I'm just in awe of anyone that's affiliated with that school, because I can't imagine how hard it is, one, to get into the school, and two, how competitive it is. Was that your number one choice?
It was actually my only choice. It was the only place that I ever applied. And I ended up applying early. I applied, the timeline is, I don't even remember, but I think it was after my sophomore year of school. So I ended up leaving right after junior year to go study there, with, of course, the support of my parents helping me figure all that out, helping me get my GED and all that stuff. But I remember going up to Boston for the audition. I remember we had to do some sight reading. We had to basically tick the boxes of are you musical? Do you have some like theory knowledge? And then show us your craft. I remember playing Unaware by Alan Stone and singing that. And yeah, it worked out for me. It's funny. It was actually like a mistake that I even had the idea to go early. I was there for a summer program and I applied for a scholarship for the next summer, and they accidentally awarded me one for a college student. And I was like, I wonder if I could use that. And it worked out in a funny way, but Berkeley's an amazing place. You know, I'm still in touch with a lot of the professors that I was able to study with there. And equally amazing are the students around you because everyone's at such a high level and are such incredible performers. So that was, those connections I still carry with me today for sure.
It's amazing to me because the evolution of the genre of music that you took to is fascinating. How in the world do you go from punk rock to jazz?
Okay, so I won't lie to you. I think the punk rock was a little bit maybe highlighted more than it was in my life for the show.
Got it.
For the listeners don't know what I'm talking about, but it was definitely like a rock band. So we did Van Halen. We wrote our own rock music. And punk maybe is a little bit of a stretch, but we were angsty teenagers, so maybe not. I grew up listening to all kinds of music, from playing classical to my parents playing everything they grew up listening to. My whole life changed when I discovered Stevie Wonder and all his music. I really fell in love with jazz and everything that encompasses at Berkeley. And it's been really cool playing full-time in Nashville. I had to learn the Nashville standards. I know some jazz stuff. Of course, I can play all the pop music. And then that has been really helpful playing full time because whenever people come up with requests, chances are I can figure it out or I know it. It's really helped me in that regard. However, I will say sometimes it's a struggle because I love everything. I love all kinds of music. And so figuring out what I should be singing doesn't always come easily.
It's funny you say that. I feel the same like with this podcast is I'm a former athlete, but I got musicians on. I've had former addicts on. I've had all sorts of people and I've kept it eclectic because really the mission that I'm on is I don't care if you're a former tennis player or a musician, whatever it may be, that there's a way to provide hope and encouragement and to go after your goals and ambitions. And with that said, in this path of going to Nashville, I've been able to talk to a few musicians, and that's a big leap of faith. A lot of folks are leaving their families, are leaving some certainty or comfort. Was it a hard decision for you to get on that plane and end up where you are today?
I always knew that I would be chasing something somewhere. So it wasn't a huge shock to me that, or my parents, that I wouldn't come back home after school. I have always been a little bit impatient to get started in the industry from leaving high school early, condensing college into 3 years. And then I literally drove to Nashville the week following my graduation. So Nashville, I was between Nashville and LA and still am a little bit, but Nashville felt like a place where I could really start my career. To me, LA felt like a place where I could move once I already had some things going, but Nashville has and always does feel like the place where people will meet you with their arms open and are totally down to facilitate connection. And I've tried to give back as much as I can to people moving here. So it's a cool thing about Nashville that is in some ways unique to this town, especially the musician community.
I see a lot with Tyler and Songhouse and how it is shown on social media where it's people gather, songwriters share stories, become written, and then they're sang in this environment where everyone's encouraging each other. And it's a unique situation for you as a musician because it is very lonely sometimes, I'm sure, when you're on that stage on your own. But when I say community and the support system, Claudia, that's gotten you to the place you are today, How much does that mean to you, and how often are you tapping into it to continue to push forward?
It means a lot to me. I think back to, it kind of goes both ways because in high school, I was involved in choir, the a cappella, all those things, but also I had this difference or this loneliness kind of that I felt on the inside. And so that also propelled me to lean into that. What made me different and how could I turn that into something cool and something that was art? Again, the same thing moving along throughout my life. I probably wouldn't have moved to Nashville if not for one of my music mentors from back home in Virginia. He moved out here a couple years before me. He's a guitar player. We don't have too much in common musically in terms of what we do, but he ended up getting hired for a gig on the road with a big country artist. And he was like, you have to do it. You have to take the leap. Just move. Just do it. And I did. And it's always this balance that I'm learning is as much as I love co-writing and as much as that can elevate you, I also have to write by myself and remember my vision and my strengths. And the more that you can balance those two things and take what both of them give you and maybe combine it, that's been what really put me into the next level of writing and artistry. I thought when I moved here that I had to do exactly what everyone else did, which is write 4 times a week with 4 other writers. And I quickly realized that didn't really work for me. And for anyone listening, give it a try, whatever everyone else is doing, and then take what works for you and do your own thing.
I get a impression from you that you're not afraid to go the direction that you want to go. And I tip my hat to you because there's a lot of people that I've seen, whether it's music, business, athletics, that are trying to make it, that are trying to make a name for themselves. And there's this idea that you can be part of the rat race and follow everyone else. But at some point, how do you ever separate yourself? And I can certainly relate to that too. I sat on trying to provide for my family by leaving full-time coaching, go into the business world, be the 9 to 5 guy, the exact opposite of the gig mentality that you are currently in. And being an entrepreneurial spirit, I thought about doing a podcast for 13 years. And eventually I got to a point where I just said, the heck with it. I took your advice and I just did it. I put an episode up and I'm like, I don't know who's going to listen to this, but I'm going to give it a shot. So when it comes to that type of mentality, Claudia, that doesn't come out of thin air. How did you instill this mindset of not being afraid to take a risk?
So the thing that hit me when you were speaking is that I've totally done all that as well. I've spent years fighting my truth and my inner artist and all of that. And when I first moved to Nashville, I thought I had to be a country artist. And I still have a song up that leans a little bit country. It's called Night Without You. And it was a result of being inspired by Nashville writers. I quickly realized, I think the thing to keep in mind is when you have a dream like this, you and I, and probably many of your listeners, it might take you years, but you're gonna have to come to terms with your truth and your heart. And the timeline may not be linear, but you're gonna figure it out eventually as long as you keep trying. And I wouldn't take away any of the deviations, I guess, I've taken from my path. I think it all adds up in the end.
Well said. And I appreciate you being honest enough to say that you've been part of that, trying to fit in and be the status quo, whatever it may be. But, I like to think that I'm a pretty observant person, and I'm picking up on some things talking to you, Claudia. And I noticed that you're drinking out of a glass.
Okay.
You might be rocking an Aura ring.
Yeah.
There might be some connection here of health, wellness. Your internal alignment is just as critical as the output that you're bringing with your music. What do you do to take care of you?
You are totally spot on. From when I can remember, I've always been a very sensitive person, both emotionally and physically. And as I've grown up, moved out of the house, been on my own, I realized just how much my environment, the things I'm eating, my activity, how much it all plays into how I'm feeling. Especially, I've noticed how in tune the emotional, mental, and the physical really are. And especially at the start of this year, I got the Aura ring. I'm tracking my sleep. As much as I can as a gigging musician, I'm going to bed at the same time every night, even though it's later than was ideal. But I'm really big on what I consume, and obviously hydrating as a singer is important. And it's something I'm still figuring out. None of us are perfect. So the more I can support my body on a physical level, the better I am in the studio and on stage.
And it's easy with the odd hours and the uniqueness of lack of normalcy per se of
Totally.
where you're spending your time to taking care of yourself. I remember growing up, I was always heavy set, struggled with my weight, and I had to make a pretty tough decision. I took a gap year after high school to go to this tennis academy, and I wanted to play college tennis, so I had to lose weight and had to go from normalcy to living in an old abandoned women's shelter because I couldn't afford to stay at the academies. And then I'm biking over there, and then I'm 6 hours a day on the court, 1,300 calories a day.
Wow.
In a year, I lost 100 pounds. And a lot of people have a very similar reaction that you just had. But what I can't stress enough, and I think you hit the nail on the head, is when you're proactive in your life and you're able to recognize the amount of output that you're going to have in order for you to go after your goal.
Yeah.
Input, what truth, what fire, we're putting all these pieces together to make sure that you have your alignment before you write that song or before you play that music. And alignment's huge. And I think it would be really telling if you could share about what was that. My moment was I was fueled by a goal and I wanted to go after it. And it was about as uncomfortable as I could get.
Yeah.
But that was necessary for me to grow. Did you have a moment in your life where it triggered this, hey, I need to get my ducks in a row to go after this? Or was it something that just organically happened over time?
It's funny. It's something I've always dealt with. I don't know if there's specifically one moment where it clicked for me, but I've always been super scared to go on stage. It's always scared the crap out of me to perform my original music. I think back to going to open mics in high school. It was just terrifying. And I always just wanted to prove to myself that I could do it. And that's what I've kept doing over and over again. As much as sometimes I hate it, I love it at the same time. And the voice was just a continuation of that. I've always had dreams of doing Idol or The Voice, especially just from when I was younger, watching those shows like Your Daughters maybe. But it was just really cool to prove to myself that I could do it. And I think that's what keeps me going and keeps me hopefully leveling up for the rest of my career, is mostly just proving to myself that, yes, you are brave enough. You can do it, even if you're shaking. I almost never come away from those experiences regretting them. So that's important to keep in mind for sure.
And I do want to get into The Voice. I know that it's something that is highly magnified, obviously on television, super dramatic.
Yeah.
Some of the videos that the listeners can check out of you absolutely crushing it. I almost wanted to start this podcast with my chair turned around just to see if it made you feel a little bit more comfortable, and then I could turn around and no.
No, well, I'm glad you did.
At some point, you have to ask yourself when you see people experience what you're experiencing is, first of all, you have to have a tremendous gift to get there. Second of all, you have to have tremendous passion to fuel the gift, to have it be recognized. But I'd love for you to walk through how in the world did The Voice come about? And I know you've mentioned nerves throughout this conversation, Was it more nervous trying out to get into Berkeley, putting that open mic session on in high school, or trying out for The Voice?
It's interesting. It's really all the same feeling,
Ah,
but it's just magnified. The bigger the platform, the bigger the opportunity. And of course, The Voice is in some ways the pinnacle of that. So I had tried out a couple times earlier in my life. I flew to Philly and New York a couple times when I was younger, 10 years ago, to audition. And both times they broke my heart. I came prepared with 5 songs. They heard me sing one and they were like, thank you can go.
wow.
Little 15, 16-year-old me was a little bit crushed.
How'd you handle that rejection at such a young age?
It's definitely something, whether you're in the music industry or probably any industry where you're pursuing something like this, it's just something you have to come to terms with. And for me, it is really motivating because I'm like, actually, no, I can do this and you'll see sooner or later.
Mm.
So that's the mentality I've grown to have with it. Although you learn and you grow over time, I truly think that if an opportunity is meant for you, it'll be yours at some point or another. And if you're hitting wall after wall, it's either about to become a breakthrough for you or you pivot slightly and head in a new direction. So I forgot about The Voice. Here and there, they would reach out to me after seeing something on YouTube or whatever. The scouting process has changed over time. But this past year, they reached out to me, I think on Instagram, and all I had to do, it was all virtual. All I had to do was send them 2 videos of me singing. I was like, sure, that's easy enough. Like, why not? Was my whole space this time around. And every step of the way through the process, I just kept thinking, is this really happening? I'm pretty sure I'm about to get cut. I'm pretty sure after my interview, they won't want to have me. I'm pretty sure. Up until the moment that I walked on the stage, there were so many unknowns because it's such a crazy process of cuts happening around you, of teams filling up. And until that moment, you're really kept in the dark. So that was, if anyone has seen my blind audition or sees it, you'll see that moment of shock and excitement when the chairs do turn around, because at that moment, I truly didn't know if there were any spots left. I didn't know anything. It was all I could do to make it through that song. And it's just been an incredible growing process and something that I'll look back on forever and just be really proud of myself.
When Tyler gave me an opportunity to connect with some of the people that he's worked with from Songhouse, he asked me very specifically, who do you resonate with? Go check out their music. Who do you resonate with? And one thing that really was cool about you, Claudia, was you connecting with John Legend, because my mom growing up, I'm telling you right now, she loved her R&B. She loved the soul music. She was rocking Luther Vandross and Whitney Houston and just absolutely immersed in it. And here I am right next to the same cassette player, hearing those same songs. And then I see some folks, this is probably going to make me not the cool guy, because here I am as a 39-year-old dude. I was listening growing up to like people like JoJo. She has this very raw, authentic voice, started very young. She's had a lot of tragedy in her life and still trying to come out the other end, but you could hear it in her voice. And I just would love for you to talk about why John Legend and what was it like being part of his team in the voice process.
Thank you for sharing. I love that you know what your mom was listening to and maybe were a little bit influenced by that yourself. I sure was with John Legend. I remember being in the practice rooms of Berkeley, actually, and trying to figure out how to play Ordinary People on the piano, and just being so obsessed with his music and that song and the chords and all of it. And getting to be on his team just felt like such an honor to me.
Yeah.
And I just was totally in shock that he liked my voice enough to turn around, that he was supportive of me through the process. And one of my favorite moments was getting to play keys for him, even though I was at that point on a different team. But yeah, getting to work with John was really cool, really like an out of body experience. He's a super nice and genuine guy, but at the same time, he's such a presence. He's really almost a little bit intimidating. I remember when we walked into rehearsals, I was like, oh my God, this is happening. He doesn't give a lot away when he's listening either necessarily, especially in rehearsals. So I remember we were running through the song and I'm looking at him. I'm like, he either really likes this or hates it. And I'm not sure what is happening. But it was truly an honor. He's a great person and musician. And I can't believe I got to be in the same room with him.
The performances throughout the whole process of The Voice, getting to watch them myself, every
Mhm.
one of them, you just had such a incredible presence. If you had to pick of all of the ones that you were able to be a part of, was there a moment on The Voice that resonated with you?
I would definitely say one of the final two.
Yeah.
My second to last was getting able to play and sing Don't Know Why by Norah Jones. And that just felt like I felt so at home there in that realm. I felt like I finally got to show them, hey, this is actually what I do. This is what I kind of sound like. And getting that affirmation from the coaches at that point felt really like I did what I came there to do, pretty much. I felt at peace after that performance. And then I also don't want to sell my last one short either, because I got to sing Talking to the Moon by Bruno Mars, and
Mm.
I got to do a little bit of what I love to do, which is arranging. And I got to work with a phenomenal band and music director, Paul. Um, and we put together this really stripped down strings version. And I'm really grateful that they let me put my 2 cents in about some chord changes. And I'm thrilled with how that one turned out as well. So probably those two.
And powerful moments. I'll definitely leave the links to the videos for the listeners to check those out. And at the end of the day, before we hopped on, The Voice
Mhm.
is no longer part of the journey for right now. But when it comes to that process, the time with John, the ability to really tap into stretching your musical muscle per se, what was the biggest thing you learned from that experience?
It's funny. I feel like the lessons are going to keep coming long after that ended. I think in moments of not knowing what to do, not knowing what step to take, just being able to look back and think, hey, John Legend wants to hear my record. Niall wants to hear what I'm doing next. I'm not crazy for thinking that I have something to offer with this music, and just remembering those comments and the feedback that I got from the coaches is really going to help propel me forward. And I think after doing that, I have a little bit of that feeling of I can do anything. Nothing will ever be as hard as it was to get up on stage in front of millions of people that weren't watching live, which was interesting as well. Having to wait so long between filming or taping and then when the show went live was interesting, because I wanted all that support that I got in the moment, but I wasn't able to get it until a couple months later. But also just meeting so many cool singers. It was similar to Berkeley. It felt like an adult summer camp of all these talented people. My season in particular, we were super, super supportive of each other. I can't wait to see how our careers intersect moving forward. That's always an interesting thing in this business, especially.
I'm always curious because when you are around those types of musicians and you guys are competing against one another, I'm a little bit shocked that it is so supportive. Because
Yeah.
when I was playing college tennis, I played 4 Americans in 4 years, and everyone else was from other countries. So when I was around these other guys, there was no niceness or collaboration by any, because we're all trying to compete. And in my case, I couldn't afford school. So if I wasn't competing at the level that allowed me to get my school paid for, I wasn't able to go. That's really cool that the collaboration happened and that you guys are all rooting for each other. And that's what wants me to kind of bring up to speed on today and the next steps for you and it's fascinating because even though we've talked about maybe some of the shortcomings or things not working out the way that you want to, you have never said the word fail throughout this entire conversation. You keep talking about learning experience, growing, adapting, adjusting, being nimble. And there's a lot of people that are listening right now that might be right in the middle of failure or right in the middle of embracing the suck or feeling like they're not good enough or in the trenches. And I have been able to have a lot of opportunities where people ask me, Claudia, like, Kollman, like, how'd you do it? How'd you lose the weight? How'd you play college tennis? How'd you overcome X, Y, and Z? And instead of answering it, I sometimes follow it up with an open-ended question just to hear more about them, because you and I both know that when you're trying to help somebody that are in these situations, some people don't want you to talk at them. They just want you to be with them. So as I say that, and it comes to someone who's struggling or trying to find the next step, what advice would you give them?
I would say that everyone that you look up to has felt that way before. The best people in the business are just those that have kept going after quote unquote failures. I think it's a balance because you have to allow yourself to grieve to a certain extent and process those emotions and figure out why you feel like such a terrible person after one person said no to you and, where that comes from. And then in my experience, it's just been perspective that shows me that, wow, that really wasn't a failure at all. I think back to this one example. I was early on into my time in Nashville. We had finally recorded final vocals. I was about to send this whole production off to mix. And we ended up losing all the files. They deleted themselves. We lost everything.
Sounds like my son's homework.
Right. But this one maybe not.
I've heard this story before. Sorry,
right. No, you're good. So we lost everything. And I thought that my world was ending a little bit because all this time that we had put in. And now I listen back to that song and I'm like, thank God that's not out there because that's really not in the direction I was supposed to go. I'm doing such better and more true stuff now. And I think perspective shows you that it's really never a failure. It's a redirection. And as much as you can do to just keep going and putting one foot in front of the other. And it's really a mental game at the end of it all. So I don't know if that helps at all, but that's my 2 cents.
What I like about that is this isn't rocket science. It's either give up or keep going.
Exactly.
And the keep going part is something that there's no rhyme or reason to it. And I really believe that the reason why you have the opportunities that you have today is because of that one step in front of the other. And listen, you're an ambitious person. You've taken a lot of risk. You've reaped the benefits of that. When it comes to next steps and the vision board for Claudia, I would love for you to walk us through what's that success platform that you would like to see in the future.
Absolutely. Well, the first thing you mentioned vision boards. I actually do make those. I love doing that. I started doing it last year and then I got to the end of the year and I realized how many of those things actually happen, which is pretty cool, even without me really focusing on it. But as for what comes next, I've been really honored by the amount of people that have, after seeing me on the show, have gone on to social media or platforms to find me. And so that's a lot of motivation for me to really get this new music ironed out. I'm working on a collection of songs, like 5 or 6 that I'll be releasing as we go into spring, some singles, then an EP that I'm just so excited for. And for me, it'll be a lot of working on the visuals to complete the package because the music is all there. And now as we're in this social media world, I need to focus on all the other things that I need to do besides the songwriting. So that's going to be what's next for me, and continuing to play shows and stuff in Nashville and just keep on trucking.
The vision board, it's funny because directly behind me here is my daughter's homeschool room. And
Okay.
there's a big old whiteboard where they write out their kind of assignments throughout the week. And mom, my wife, is just somehow, some way that balancing act of being a teacher and a mom. I tip my hat to her every day. But it's important to dream and to visualize and to put things on paper. And I'm just curious, like when it comes to goal setting, is that something that was always part of what makes you tick, or did you have to develop it as you were going after your goals?
It's definitely been something that I have developed. When I was younger, the next steps felt really clear. Getting out of high school, then getting out of college. And now that I'm on my own and really completely an entrepreneur as much as I am a musician, it's been really important to lay out those next steps. I've been lately doing that as part of my morning. I'll look at my goals, I'll write down whatever things I need to write down. I'll make a plan for the day. And then it's important to tie that into, we can get so caught up in making sure everything's perfect day to day. But then if that doesn't add to your greater vision, then you'll keep doing the same thing over and over. So it's definitely been something I've worked at and I'm still figuring out. As a musician, nowadays you're like a million jobs in one. You're your own label, your own manager, all of it. So it's important for me to really stay focused because my kind of ADD tendencies can get the best of me with music.
The concept of planning, but not planning to the point of where it paralyzes you. I've,
Yeah.
I've seen a lot of that in my own life where I teach it all the time. When you overthink, you stink. And there's a lot of kids that I've been able to help that can't hit forehands and backhands unless they understand how to perform. And I think that's just such great advice that you've given to be able to, yes, work a plan. The plan ain't perfect, but find a way to keep going and don't be afraid to pivot. And with that said, there's a lot of awesome opportunity and excitement ahead in your life. And it's been awesome to walk through. But I am curious when it comes to a bucket list and you had an opportunity to do a duet with the person of your dreams, who would be someone that you would be singing alongside with?
Ooh, that's a good question. It's always been a dream of mine to meet Stevie Wonder. So I have to put him up there, maybe at number one. Let's see. My fiance is also an amazing songwriter, singer, and artist. So I'm lucky enough to sing with him at least every week at our gig. And so I think even, it would be a bucket list thing to do that on a greater scale. So I think those are my two answers.
Stevie Wonder is fantastic. If I had an opportunity to sing with someone, I know it's going to sound silly, but I definitely have Billy Ray Cyrus up there. I don't know
Oh, cool.
why. I just think he was just the OG of country music back in the day. And I'm not even a huge country fan. This all just stemmed again from what was on my mom's jukebox. But nonetheless, when you have the opportunity to reflect on pretty young life to this point, you got a lot of years ahead of you, but you've had a chance to reflect and you've probably had to lick your wounds as much as reap some of the success that we've talked about. But I am curious, if you had an opportunity to go back to that 16, 17-year-old Claudia that's trying to figure it out in high school and make some of these big decisions that you eventually made, knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself?
That is a great question. I go back and forth between wanting to do everything different, but also being totally happy with the way things worked out because who knows how much of our past really determine our futures. I would say no matter what, keep going, which is totally cliche and totally true at the same time. I would say to little me and hopefully everyone listening that what makes you different is actually going to be your biggest strength. So spend more time trying to hone in on that than you do change it. I think those will be the two biggest things, but just to keep your head down, keep going, and don't let fear get in the way of you taking those big steps.
Hmm. Well,
Still the advice I need now. That's great.
lastly, I'm going to ask you for some advice. I have a goal and ambition of being on a TED stage, and I've had a lot of people that have supported me, that have encouraged me to share my story and the BTB project and kind of the mission behind it. When it is being on that stage, and it can be nerve-wracking, and you've said that nerves have sometimes gotten the best of you.
Yeah.
When I'm on that stage, what advice do you have for me to overcome some of those feelings that you've had?
I know you will be super prepared when that moment comes, but I think just the more that you run your talk, the more you won't have to worry about forgetting the words or anything like that. So the more prepared you are, of course, is first and foremost. And then I don't know, if I were going to tell something to myself looking back, I would say there's nothing really to be lost here. It's all you're winning just by being on that stage. And so I would just say to trust that what you have to say matters, that your voice matters, and let all the rest go.
And being fueled by passion allows you to handle those situations pretty well. And it's crazy because I never thought, when I had to say goodbye to my mom 20 years ago, her last words to me was to go help people. And I share that because I am curious with you when it comes to a mentor or a family member or your fiance or whoever it is. Do you have someone in your life that maybe has given you a piece of wisdom that sticks with you today?
So many little things along the way. I think growing up, not only having parents support me, but also working with the person I mentioned who was my mentor growing up and propelled me to move to Nashville. He just always saw me, even as a 14-year-old. We spoke a couple months ago on the phone, and he was like, "You haven't changed that much. You've always had this voice and had this like musicality or whatever it is from the time that you were that young." Man, it's nice to have someone who can watch your journey from start to not finish, but wherever you are at this point, and reflect back to you, because so often we're stuck in our own heads, overanalyzing, and having someone to, reflect back to you, give you feedback in a way that's not unbiased, but not tied into our own kind of insecurities or thoughts or whatever we may have has been really important to me. And now in my life, it is a lot with my fiance and having someone on the outside to be like, "No, that song is really good. You should put it out." Just little things like that to keep me sane.
That's so cool. And I just am unbelievably taken away by your presence, your confidence, the accomplishments you've had. You got an amazing voice, Claudia. I wish
So
you
much.
continued success. And if your aura ring is anything like mine, it says that we got to get up and stretch our legs a bit. So, with that said, Claudia, thank you so much for joining me on the BTB project.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been a pleasure.
What a tremendous conversation with Claudia B. Swope. Being able to touch on the values she was able to uncover by facing challenges in the music industry, being a contestant on The Voice, being able to be part of John Legend's team. I'll post the videos of Claudia performing for The Voice, and just the unbelievable way that she was able to control the room, control the judges, fueled by passion, having a powerful voice, and having a presence on stage that was memorable. Her experience from Berkeley to the Voice stage to now an iconic singer out of Nashville. Claudia taught us a lot of lessons that we can take with us as a BTB community. Being able to take the risk that is fueled by passion, being able to have the alignment necessary to push, to overcome challenges, her exciting future ahead, being able to leverage the opportunities that she has had and having it propel her into having this dream come true that she set as a goal when she was just a child. A lot of takeaways from Claudia's message. And I know you as a listener will be inspired and that you can take with you as you go on your own built to be journey. Listen. If Claudia's message inspired you, do me a favor and like and subscribe to the BTB Project. Better yet, send this message to a family member, friend, or colleague and tell them why it impacted you. Let's continue to pay the mission forward. And thank you so much for checking out today's episode. As always, impossible's nothing. And until next time, take care.